Hello, my name is Rebecca, and today I will be presenting a human rights and employment case study. This case looks at family status discrimination in the workplace. The case I will be examining today is Misitich versus Value Village Stores, Inc. It was heard by the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario on September 20th, 2016. I will examine the issues, facts, arguments, held, remedy, and implications of the case. There are two issues that the case addresses. The primary issue is, did the proposed change in schedule to accommodate the applicant's physical restrictions lead to discrimination by the employer based on family status? A second issue in the case is, was the applicant's termination discriminatory? This was not a clear allegation by the applicant, but was addressed by the adjudicator anyway. The facts of the case are, the applicant began working at Value Village in April 2006 in the customer service department. She worked days, evenings, and on call. In June 2010, the applicant transferred to a production position in the back of the store. She worked Monday to Friday, straight days in this role. In January 2013, the applicant developed a repetitive strain injury while working in the production area and provided medical documentation for a lifting restriction. On January 10th, the employer offered temporary modified duties in the customer service department. The employer advised that the shifts in customer service may include days, evenings, and weekends. The applicant declined the employer's offer of modified duties in writing, stating that the hours would place hardship on her because she prepared evening meals for her elderly mother. The applicant did not return to work at this time. In February 2013, the applicant provided a medical form extending her restrictions and a self-written note saying she is unable to work evenings, weekends, or on-call shifts due to her elder care responsibilities. The applicant did not return to work at this time. In June 2013, the employer sent the applicant a registered letter requesting medical evidence to support her ongoing absence and that working evenings and weekends would interfere with her elder care responsibilities. In July 2013, the applicant provided a medical note for her injury that included a return to work plan. She did not provide any evidence that she could not work evenings and weekends. The applicant did not return to work. On August 19th, the applicant provided a note from her doctor stating that she could not work outside of her normal hours because she has to take care of her mother. On August 22nd, the applicant and the store manager agreed on a tentative return to work schedule commencing September 3rd. The store manager provided the note to the claims manager. The claims manager believed that the note was from the applicant's doctor, not the mother's doctor, and denied the note. The claims manager sent a second registered letter to the applicant requesting medical evidence. The applicant did not return to work on September 3rd. She provided two more handwritten notes. The first was about her schedule. The second stated that her and her mother have the same doctor and asked for clarification about what information was needed. The employer sent a third registered letter to the applicant requesting medical evidence that she had to provide care to her mother in the evenings and weekends and that no alternatives were available. On September 24th, the applicant advised that her doctor was away until September 30th and that she was not abandoning her job. On October 1st, having received no further information, the employer terminated the applicant's employment. To summarize the facts, the employer made three formal requests for medical evidence of family obligations. The applicant provided 5 handwritten notes from herself stating that she cannot work evenings or weekends. The applicant provided 1 note from her own doctor about her schedule that was not accepted by the claims manager. In total, the applicant was off for a total of 8 months and did not return to work. There were arguments made by both sides on a number of factors. The first argument revolved around discrimination. The applicant argued that the employer was discriminatory. The employer changing her schedule was discriminatory based on family status because the requirement to work evenings or weekends would interfere with her ability to care for her elderly mother. She argued that she could not return to work unless the employer agreed to schedule her Monday to Friday during the daytime. The employer argued that they were not discriminatory. The change in departments and scheduling was made to temporarily accommodate the applicant's physical restrictions, and they needed more information to determine appropriate accommodations. The second argument was about provision of medical evidence. The employer argued that the applicant failed to provide adequate medical evidence. Over the course of 10 months, the employer requested that the applicant provide medical or legal evidence that she was her mother's primary caregiver, that she was required to provide care on evenings and weekends, and that no alternatives were available. In the employer's argument, they said that the applicant failed to provide adequate documentation. The applicant's argument for not supplying medical evidence was that she believed that the employer was not entitled to information about her mother. The applicant was angry that medical information was requested. And then during the arbitration, the applicant provided greater details on the needs of her mother's care. The third argument revolved around accommodation. The applicant argued that she was previously accommodated for elder care. When she moved to production, the applicant argued that she had told her supervisor that she had elder care issues and the production hours would suit her needs. However, the employer denied any previous accommodation, saying that the applicant was moved to production because she has had issues with cash. The final argument revolved around termination. The employer argued that the applicant was terminated for job abandonment. She did not work her scheduled shifts in September, which were agreed upon between her and the store manager on August 22nd. They argued that the applicant refused to return to work unless she would be accommodated during the months of July and August, and they argued that they notified the applicant that if she failed to provide medical evidence or return to work, that she would be terminated. The applicant denied that she abandoned her job. She argued that the September shifts were revoked by the employer when it refused to accept the August 19th doctor's note. She sent a note to the store manager, district manager, and claims manager saying that she was in no way abandoning her position. Held. The adjudicator began the case by discussing the test for family status discrimination. The test for discrimination is the same in all cases. An applicant must establish that he or she is a member of a protected group, has experienced adverse treatment, and the ground of discrimination was a factor in the adverse treatment. This is what the applicant had the responsibility to prove during the case. In this case, the adjudicator found that the applicant failed to establish discrimination. The adjudicator said that the applicant did not provide adequate evidence of her elder care responsibilities. And she's quoted saying, the applicant believed that all she needed to do was to assert her family status and that would be the end of it. The applicant was wrong. The applicant was required to provide sufficient information to substantiate her elder care responsibilities. She failed to do so. Secondly, the adjudicator stated that the applicant did not prove that the ability to provide evening meals for her mother was adversely affected by working evenings and weekends. She could have worked these shifts and provided evening meals for her mother when required, in the same way that she was able to provide a meal in the middle of the day. Based on the fact that the applicant was unable to prove family status discrimination, the adjudicator found that it was not necessary to consider the issue of accommodation. However, the adjudicator did say that accommodation could have been possible if the applicant had provided the employer with the information she gave during the arbitration, supported by medical evidence. If this information was provided to the employer during her employment, the applicant may have been able to establish that the change in schedule led to discrimination based on family status. In this case, the employer may have been obliged to accommodate the applicant to the point of undue hardship. The applicant was not terminated due to discrimination, as found by the adjudicator. The arbitrator found that the applicant was terminated for two reasons. One, she did not meet the employer's repeated request to provide medical evidence of her elder care responsibilities. Two, she did not work at all between the months of January and September. The arbitrator agreed with the employer's position that the applicant abandoned her job. In terms of the remedy, the application was dismissed. No punitive measures were implemented for the employer because they were not found to have discriminated against the applicant based on family status. And finally, the implications. This case had implications for both the employee and the employer. For the employee, one of the implications was the need to provide evidence of elder care responsibilities. The applicant cannot simply claim discrimination based on family status without any evidence to support that a family status accommodation was needed. What she did poorly was she did not provide adequate medical information, and she did not cooperate with her employer as she failed to return to work between January and September, even when a return to work schedule was agreed upon by both parties. Implications for the employer met their responsibilities. They tried to gather information regarding the applicant's elder care responsibilities multiple times. The information was required to determine whether an accommodation was needed and the parameters of that accommodation. These efforts helped their case. A potential takeaway for the employer could be to create an accommodations policy that outlines the roles and responsibilities of all parties during the accommodations process. This could help with future accommodation cases so that employees are aware of the expectations. Thank you for the opportunity to present this case, and I hope that you learned something about family status discrimination in the workplace.